Welcome to Cuba!
Cuba has been popping up in my feed for some time now, and I think looking at a wide range of tourism in the area, only a few honest people will tell you in a transparent way their true experience in Cuba. Cuba is currently a country where people are just trying to survive. Now, people can't express their troubles and speak out because the punishment for rebelling against the government starts from 10 years in prison. So everyone is cautious and afraid and can't speak up.
Cuba is a very nice country because here in Cuba, the school is free, you can pay nothing for the school, to the kindergarten and for the university. But the doctor is free too, the dentist is free too, but the more bigger problem for us is because the system, socialista, comunista, is very good and the thinking. But Marxist Lenin rating very well, it's very beautiful. Everybody's the same. But for the tourists it's good because you're making more local money. Now for the Cuban people, no good. The salary is very down and the price for everything is crazy expensive. And this is impossible for us. It's for the reason that the young people is very angry right now. But for me it's impossible I told like this, but I don't care. No problem. Finish.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
No, don't worry. They go into the prison, no problem. I don't care. She, American and Cuban, friends forever.
This woman's bravery surprised all of us.
While their country staggers through an economic crisis with no end in sight, Cubans are leaving in unprecedented numbers. This medical student plans to fly to Nicaragua before journeying up to the US-Mexico border. He insisted on anonymity for fear of reprisals.
O morir, o llegar.
Either I get there or I die. Those are my two options. I can accept dying in the hands of a coyote or during the journey, but I won't die as an old man lining up for food here in Cuba.
Most people who love budget travel with a small budget around 1,200 euro per month for two goes a long way. For my salsa lovers, Cuba is a dream destination with a population approximately 12 million people. With Havana as one of the country's most popular places, the city alone has about 2.5 million people. Now, I feel like Cuba is the most mysterious of all the Caribbean islands, yet still it draws people in. Most tourists fantasize about wandering the streets, taking photos of happy locals dancing, drinking mojitos, surrounded by people playing trombones, tubas and trumpets and cooling off on the beaches somewhere. But that fantasy is immediately thrown out the window as soon as you arrive and realize that everyone who realizes that you are a tourist will quote you exorbitant prices. Now, taxi men will charge you $40 to $50 for a 5-minute ride to the city center. Most people complain that there is no cheaper alternatives like buses, metros, or Uber. So you have no choice. You need to pay for a taxi to the city center.
This guy makes more in one day than a doctor makes in a month, and he's a taxi driver. Well, he's actually a trained engineer, but engineers make even less than doctors.
Tourism is a primary source of income in Cuba, making it a huge contribution to the country's gross domestic product. Now, in 2021 alone, the Cuban travel and tourism sector contributed around $8 billion to the country's GDP. So you will see why seeing a tourist is as valuable as gold in Cuba. Local people there see every tourist as a potential cash machine.
There are some people who essentially hunt gringos, if you will. Hunt yumas. Yuma is actually the popular word for gringo, foreigner here in Cuba. I want you guys to stay away from those folks who are coming after you, right? If anyone approaches you and they seem to be really friendly and they want to go out to this place or that place, I want you guys to shut that person down, okay? I'm speaking from personal experience here in Cuba. If someone is very friendly and they want to go this place with you, that place with you, be worried. Only talk to people who you pursue a conversation with. It just ends up working out better that way.
Now, this is why if you're a tourist in Cuba, you need to negotiate on every purchase you make in the country. Most likely than not, you will always be ripped off if you always agree to the first price for the services that you receive. Trust that when the taxi fare is $50. You can always negotiate to $15 or better still find another taxi for much less. Life in Cuba is hard and you see the desperation to survive within the city. Now, it's not just the simple, colorful photographer's dream you imagine and see at first look. You know you are going to get a bill at the end of the day if you are invited for dinner or befriended for a ride. Most filmmakers don't add the reality in their stories, but paint the picture of having an authentic experience with locals who are so friendly and open-minded out of the goodness of their hearts, propose to show them around, where in reality, they are charged heavily for these experiences at the end of the day. It's just the nature of the hustle, at least for the locals.
Don't fall for the jineteros, jineteras. Jineteras and jineteros are terms used in Cuba to describe individuals who engage in illicit business with tourists, including prostitution. Jineteras are women, and jineteros are men who hustle. They're like the Cuban version of the hustlers you see in movies. But before you get any ideas, let me tell you something. Jineteras and jineteros are not your average streetwalkers. They are street smart and know how to spot a tourist from a mile away. Trust me, they will try to hustle you in every possible way, from trying to be your guide or bringing you to a shop where he gets a cut of whatever you buy. You get the idea, right? So, when you're in Cuba, watch out for the jineteras and jineteros. They're like the Cuban version of a shark in a pool full of tourists. But don't worry, just say no and enjoy your vacation without any hustle. And remember, when in Cuba, stick to the legal activities and avoid any hustles, and enjoy your vacation.
Now, tourists use Cuban pesos. Now, this gives the government more control on who is spending what and where. Due to this system, getting hands on the tourist money is key. It is the desperation that triggers the taxi issues as soon as you emerge from your hotel, and it's also the same reason you will be asked countless times of where you are from and whether you want to go to a party on an hourly basis. Now, they know you have the money and there are only a few ways that they can get their hands on it. Now, don't get it twisted. Cuba is beautiful, but it's also important to have a full picture of what it's really like to visit the country. The idea of Havana, smiling faces, dancing in the streets, everyone having a good time, is a myth. Don't fall for it. Just remember you are their client from a range of services, from the holiday destination to taxis, tour guides, cheap cigars, but all these smiles come at a cost. Cubans are genuinely warm people, but the primary purpose behind wanting to chat with you is to extract money from your pockets. Now, it's that simple, especially when your outfit is elegant. The more valuable items you have on you, the more likely people will constantly stop you and try to get money from you.
Don't bring bling. Well, my friends, the economy in Cuba is a bit of a tricky thing. While there are fancy resorts, the country is primarily poor. You might see signs of this economic struggle everywhere, from small towns to the streets of Havana. I know the average salary in Cuba is about $20 per month, which sounds pretty rough. So people in Cuba don't have much money to spend. So what does this mean for you, the tourist? If you're walking around with flashy jewelry, designer watches, smartphones, and earbuds for your iPod, you might as well be waving a big sign that says, "Rob me." Street crime can happen anywhere, and when the haves show off their valuable possessions to the have-nots, it can be like a red flag to a bull. So, I advise you to leave the bling at home and instead pack a good book, a comfortable pair of shoes, and a good attitude. That way, you won't look attractive to pickpocketers, and you'll be able to enjoy your vacation without any worries.
Now, let me state this emphatically because people were not too happy about my video about why foreigners hate India. You can go check it out right here. But if a country is struggling with livelihood issues where poverty and unemployment is high, there is high abundance of scammers in that country. Cuba is currently a country where people are just trying to survive. Before the 1958 revolution, Cuba was one of the most prosperous places in the world, and the quality of life exceeded some European nations, but today, things are different. Everything in Cuba belongs to the government, and due to the very low salaries, Cubans don't pay rent or mortgages. Housing and food is also provided by the government, but the government cannot keep up with the needs of the people, so there is hunger and people have to battle for survival.
Don't talk about politics or Fidel. Now, before you get excited and start spouting off your opinions about communism and the embargo, let me give you a friendly warning. Politics in Cuba is like a minefield. One wrong step, and boom! You'll find yourself in a heated debate with a passionate local. Now, I know you might be thinking, but Captain Anthony, I just want to express my opinion. And that's great, really it is. But the thing is, in Cuba, expressing your opinion can be a bit tricky. You see, freedom of speech is not exactly at the top of the government's agenda, and discussing politics can be seen as a threat to the government's authority. So, unless you're looking to spend your vacation in a Cuban prison, I suggest you steer clear of any political discussions.
One thing about Cuba is that it is a remarkably safe country for tourists, so this is not about what is right or wrong. Everyone sees things differently. I'm just explaining how the reality of things are, and I would love to hear your point of view in the comments below. Roheritage here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.